In today's video, we go over the entire history of Fortnite, starting from Chapter 1 all the way to Chapter 3. If you guys are new around here, tap that subscribe button, and don't forget to tap a like on today's video. And let me know in the comments, what was your favourite season ever inside of Fortnite? Let's jump into the history of Fortnite. Here we go. So Fortnite Save the World was initially released on the 25th of July, and it didn't take long for Fortnite to step up their game and release a Battle Royale game on the 12th of September for all the owners of Save the World. And then it took all the way until the 26th of December after they went through the early beta / testing with the Save the World members. Then obviously on the release of the 26th of September, Fortnite became free for everyone with Battle Royale, introducing duos and squads, and everything was ready to go. This also added in the scoped assault rifle, the Zapatron, the tactical submachine gun, and the supply drop into the first ever update of Fortnite. And that also was the release for everyone. This was basically most people's day one of Fortnite if you played it on this day. Next up, Fortnite continued throughout this season, just doing mainly balance changes and tweaks throughout all of the pre-season until we hit Season 1. Fortnite Season 1 was initially released on the 25th of October with Halloween, with the Fortnite mode's first ever event inside of Fortnite, introducing the Pumpkin rocket launcher, as well as the Slurp Juice, leaderboards, season levels, items, and even the locker for anyone purchasing skins. We all know the initial skins that were released in this set. That included obviously the Skull Trooper and the Gold Trooper, two of the classic skins to this day. We're mainly going to be focusing on update content here and not too much skin based, but we will mention certain battle passes and stuff as we do go through. Voice chat was also added in later in that week on the 2nd of November, and straight after this, Fortnite hit its huge goal of 20 million players, so they celebrated that by adding the bush into the game, which was one of the most funniest additions ever in Fortnite in my opinion. And then following from there, on version 1.9, we had the addition of launch pads added into the game, and also later in that week they added the suppressed SMG for the first time in Fortnite. And then following on from there was really just small additions. For example, the smoke grenade was also added in the version 1.9.1, and then eventually version 1.10 was released, which added in a new UI system overall, just basically for the inventory. And just before Fortnite's first ever battle pass was introduced, we got the release of 50v50, probably one of the most nostalgia Fortnite modes ever, on the 8th of December, and then the following few days leading up to the version 1.11, which was on December the 13th, we got the first ever battle pass inside of Fortnite Season 2 battle pass. Continuing on from here, then we had the small shield added in, which was a really cool addition. This was basically a smaller version of the big shield, as we all know today as the minis, which is super cool. They gave 25 HP, and then also on the 23rd of December, they added in the Boogie Bomb. So that was pretty cool. This is 2017, by the way, still in 2017. This was the last update of 2017, which was cool because the Boogie Bomb got added, as well as high explosives game mode after 50v50. And then finally into the 2018 year, they started off the year straight away with some new additions, adding the suppressed pistol and even sneaky silencers, which is a really cool addition to the game. At this point in time, Fortnite have already added in 3 LTMs, and we'll continue to cover them throughout this video, the LTMs, but we will miss out a few of them because there were so many LTMs at one point when we do start getting into some of the deeper seasons. But the next major update was added, which was the version 2.2, probably the biggest update ever in Fortnite in my opinion, because this was the introduction of tilted towers and so many other POIs, from Haunted Hills, Junk Junction, Shifty Shafts, Snobby Shores, Tilted, and some of the other minor POIs, the Yonder Yard, the Motel, the Soccer Stadium, Starry Suburbs, and just other outer skirt locations added in inside of this update. This was on January 18th, probably the biggest update in my opinion and game changer for the Fortnite community. As well, with this update, we also expected other content to get introduced. We had actually the snowball launcher vaulted, which was introduced for one of the Christmas events previously. We also got the grenade launcher back unvaulted, which made a reappearance, as well as following on from here, the Chug Jug was introduced a week later in the update version 2.3, and then version 2.4 introduced the minigun, and then even after the minigun a week later, we even got the Cupid crossbow for the Valentine's event, and finally to end off the season, we got the introduction of the version 2.5 or 2.50, which was the introduction of impulse grenades, and unfortunately the classic SMG, which you guys remember, the original SMG was vaulted, and that was the end of Fortnite Season 2. And moving on to one of the most famous Fortnite seasons of all times for OGs out there, Season 3. This season came with a brand new battle pass, including a John Wick lookalike skin, space suits across the board for skins, and so much more. You can see a little bit of gameplay of the battle pass here. It was one of the best Fortnite seasons overall, in my opinion, because of also the introduction of the hand cannon and the crossbow were added in this season. We also got the introduction of the hunting rifle in the following update, version 3.1, and even the introduction of Lucky Landing in version 3.1. Sadly, there were no major map changes on the release of Season 3, but it only took a week later until they actually added in Lucky Landing, which was super awesome. So that was pretty cool. So we're moving on to probably my favorite update for the Fortnite storyline fans out there, and this was version 3.3. This was mega. In this update itself, it contained obviously remote explosives and the llama. That was pretty big, but for storyline fans out there, check this out. So the update itself released on March the 14th, 2018, but 6 days later, we had the introduction of the meteor in the sky. If you guys remember the big glow in the sky, the meteor, and this was the start of the Fortnite storyline. Without this meteor, nothing would be where it is today, and that was introduced on the 20th of March. Crazy stuff, right? And then following on from this update, we had the heavy shotgun added in a week later. That was just in the version 3.31. And then another massive Fortnite update happened. In version 3.40, we had the introduction of the guided missile. What a crazy weapon this was. I really want it to come back one day. One of my favorite weapons overall. As well as the egg launcher was first introduced as well in this update. But not only that, we also had telescopes all over the map pointed towards the meteor in the sky, which was absolutely insane for the Fortnite storyline to bring a start to it. And this is where things really started to ramp up. And then from here on, we also got in this update, halfway through it, not straight away, we got the introduction of vending machines in this update, which was pretty mega for anyone interested in the vending machines. But it didn't stop there. We had a lot of updates this season in Season 3. We actually move on to our next update, which is going to be the version 3.5, which introduced porta forts. It got rid of the egg launcher and brought back the grenade launcher. As well, later on in the week, it introduced the light machine gun, the LMG, and it vaulted the guided missile. Rip the guided missile, goodbye, our friend there, which was pretty cool. And on the actual next update, following on from there, we're actually in April now, on April the 24th, we get the introduction of the sticky grenade, the clingers, as well as on the map change side of stuff, we saw small camps popping up around tilted towers on the roofs with UFO drawings and stuff, with rumors that the meteorite was going to hit tilted towers, but unfortunately, it never did. And then on April the 25th, we started to see a llama style pattern on the TVs, and then on April 26th, we started to see small live events happening with meteorites falling from the sky. This was crazy because there were crazy amount of meteors falling all over. There's lots of footage of this all over the internet, and technically, this is the first ever live event in Fortnite. So yeah, kind of a cool addition there on April the 26th, which was in the last update for Season 3. Season 4 of Fortnite was introduced on May the 1st, 2018, version 4.0, added in Hot Rocks being the only item added in, but the storyline really started to ramp up here. We saw the huge trailer for the introduction of Season 4, a brand new Battle Pass was also introduced, and several new POIs were changed slightly. We saw a massive map change in the center of the map, where the giant meteor crashed into Dusty, which was probably one of the best POIs added in from a kind of mini event which happened during the trailer, and also many other POIs over the map took small changes. For example, Tilted had a big meteor crate in it at the office building, and many other POIs as well. We also saw the introduction of the drive-in theater, which was Risky Reels, which was added in for this, which was kind of cool. It was built and unfortunately damaged by the meteor for this release, as well as a few other smaller POIs added in around the map. For example, the villain layer and even the actual hero layer over by Lonely Lodge. Other than that, there were smaller minor map changes around the map, which I'm not going to cover in this video because they were only stuff like movie sets and just smaller minor little changes, but there were lots of stuff all over in this update. It was huge. Then moving on to the next major update, which was version 4.1, which was on the 8th of May 2018. This introduced one of the biggest collaborations ever in Fortnite's history, the Infinity Gauntlet limited time mashup. Introducing Thanos into Fortnite was huge, and it allowed players to go all over the map and do crazy stuff. We also got the mysterious bunkers, which were added in over at Wailing Woods. These were super crucial for the storyline, as we know that the IO used these to travel in and out of the 0 point, but at this time, No one really knew what they were, and there were so many theories around these from cubes and all sorts, so that was pretty crazy. Then moving on to our next update, which was the version 4.2, we got the introduction of the burst assault rifle in epic and legendary, and even apples which fell off trees. Kind of a really cool update, version 4.2, which a lot of people did like. The crater at Tilted Towers was also beginning to be patched up in the storyline side, and even the evacuation of Meteor at Dusty started to happen. We started to see different people move around here and a lot of stuff go on, which was kind of cool. And I think a lot of people did like this just because this was the start of the storyline and the introduction of the Seven's first member, the Visitor, who was also part of this battle pass, as we know. The following week, jetpacks were introduced in a small content update, probably the first item ever to be added in, which really did cause a lot of controversy in the community. 100% in the competitive side, and this is where things really started to divide themselves between competitive and casual. If you want to put that on the map, I'd probably say jetpacks were the first item to do that, in my opinion. So moving on to the version 4.3, this introduced shopping carts and mushrooms to the game, which was pretty cool, which allowed players to eat for shield if you want, and even shopping carts were crazy. The stuff that people did with these, the first ever vehicle in Fortnite technically, so that was nice to have. And we also just got some minor small map changes around the map, but it was very hard to tell what these map changes were because it was simply just posters and just grass growing in different areas at Dusty and just several places. The final update was live for Season 4, and this was the first ever event in Fortnite added into this update. We first got the addition of dual pistols added in at the start of the update, the version 4.5 on the 27th of June, and then the following few days from here we saw small map changes, for example the detective office at Retail Row, and basically just the vehicles really moving around the map, heading towards the location of the rocket, which the Visitor was constructing over by the villain base. Now what was really awesome about this, it was the first ever event in Fortnite. We see the rocket event, the huge crack in the sky, the entire event. It was massive. This was huge, game changing for the Fortnite storyline, leaving this crazy crack in the sky. And following from this crack, we got the introduction of the drum gun, and several other POIs started to go missing. Places like Durburger and Tomato Head started just randomly rifting away. There are several different POIs that this happened to all over the map, and it was all leading up to the release of Fortnite Season 5, with the final map change being the World Cup Stadium added into the open soccer area, just where Starry Suburbs ruins used to be, but sadly this was only for the World Cup and was removed in Season 5, which we're moving on to right now. Chapter 1 Fortnite Season 5 went live on the 12th of July for version 5.0. The crack in the sky continued to get bigger throughout this season, and it introduced a variety of brand new mechanics, including the all-terrain cart, the ATK, the golf cart, which was part of the brand new POIs, Lazy Links. But that wasn't the only brand new POI which was added in. We had several other ones. We had Paradise Palms, which replaced Moisty Mire. We also had a few other POIs added in, including the Viking Village over by Snobby Shores, and we also got the introduction of Tomato Temple, which replaced where Tomato Town used to be, and a few minor little map changes throughout, which included these giant heads which had rifts around them all over the map, which was kind of cool, which was themed around the season with the rifts. Obviously that was really crucial for this season. That's what the season was themed around originally on the release. So with that being said, that update went live, and then later in the week we got the introduction of the new submachine gun, which wasn't a suppressed one, but unfortunately the tactical SMG did get vaulted. Moving on to the next update in Fortnite, this was version 5.1. In this update we saw the first birthday of Fortnite. Many cakes were added in around the map. This was the first ever update where cakes were introduced, and we also saw the introduction of the compact SMG, the brand new SMG. And luckily enough, later in the week, the guided missile made a return. Why is it still not made a return today? But it did make a return in Season 5, which was really cool. So welcome back to the guided missile. And that was really it in that update. Moving on to version 5.2. This was a minor update, nothing too major, but it did introduce the double barrel shotgun into Fortnite. As well, in the following week we got the introduction of the heavy sniper. Then the following week the next update was released, which was version 5.3, one of my favorite updates of all times, because this saw the introduction of the cube. The crack in the sky started to shrink, and the live event happened with the birth of the cube inside of Fortnite. Not only did we get the cube, we also got the Rift to Go item, as well as a week later we got the shockwave grenade. And throughout this coming week, should I say, the cube really just rotated and slowly bounced around the map, or rolled, should I say, around the map just like a dice, which was really cool. And this continued into the next update, version 5.4, where the cube continued to roll around the map, and added in the introduction of the brand new grappler for the first ever time in Fortnite. And then following on from here, as the cube continued to go around the map all the way over to Loot Lake, we got the introduction of the suppressed assault rifle. Unfortunately, the drum gun did get vaulted, and even a port to Fortress. And right at the very end of this season, we saw the final event for the season, where the cube slowly sank into Loot Lake, turning into Thanos Lake, as I like to call it, which was the purple lake at the Loot Lake location, and you could bounce on it. So that was the final event for Season 5. Fortnite Chapter 1 Season 6 was introduced on the 27th of September. In this update, we received the Shadow Stone, which was a brand new item which you could eat and turn into a ghost and float around, which is pretty cool. We also saw the cube itself rise from Loot Lake, which was the major map change in this update, and there were smaller minor map changes, for example, Halloween decorations being popped up around, and even just, for example, runes added into the map where you could actually get the Shadow Stones from. We also saw the introduction of different weapons in this update. We saw the introduction of the Chiller 1 week later after the update launched, which was a trap which would make your feet a little bit icy, and also the quad launcher, which was kind of neat overall. And eventually the cube did start rotating around the map to all the different ruins to suck in the energy ready for Fortnitemares, which didn't come until later, which we'll get to in a second, because in the next update, version 6.1, which was introduced on October the 16th, we got the introduction of quad crashes, which actually were drivable quads, which were amazing, which also added a new map change outside of Tilted Towers, which replaced the old open soccer stadium, and it was a mini racetrack just to celebrate the introduction of the quad crashes. And then moving on to version 6.2, this was when Fortnitemares was introduced. We got a crazy Fortnitemares trailer you can see here, and this was the event for the cube actually splitting, because during the previous update, the cube went back into the lake, which was renamed to Leaky Lake. But eventually, it actually decided to come out of the lake in this trailer and split in the air, which used all the energy which it had sucked up, which was pretty awesome. So you had this crazy cube hovering in the air, and this summoned all of the cube monsters, where the Last Reality attempted possibly to take the island for the first time that we've seen in the Fortnite lore, which was kind of cool. We also got the introduction of the cube monsters, the Fiend Hunter Crossbow, and the 6-shooter. And because this was the Fortnite Halloween season for the second time, we also got the return of the pumpkin launcher, which gets returned every single Halloween, and it's an amazing weapon. So that's mainly what happened in that update, and then obviously that update continued because there's minor updates throughout, where we got the introduction of the balloon in the version 6.21, and then the following week we also got the introduction of the new heavy AR. So many weapons were added in the original chapter 1. It was crazy the amount of introductions we had of weapons. And then to end off this update, Fortnite actually ended it with the butterfly event, the first official Fortnite announced event, which was for the cube. This is where the cube had exploded, which has been hovering over Loot Lake for a very long amount of time, and eventually destroyed itself, creating a crazy explosion and a new POI in this center, which was obviously the cube's remains, and there were no more cube monsters on the map. So kind of cool ending to the Halloween season, which was all Halloween based, but obviously now we know it's part of possibly the Last Reality, the cube stuff going on there, which is really cool. And then obviously moving on to the next update, this is where things started to take it to a next level. We also had version 6.3, which added in a variety of new stuff. The food truck war started to go and continue on throughout this section. We had the food trucks move all over the place from different POIs, Pleasant Park, Haunted Hills, like so many different POIs throughout this update. And weapon wise, we saw the introduction of the mounted turret, as well as introduction of dynamite and the pump shotgun in its epic and legendary variants. Two variants which are probably very, very big for the Fortnite community, especially the competitive side. These two pumps are probably the most used weapon in creative, which is kind of cool. But this season ended itself off nicely with a blizzard appearing in the distance away from Flush Factory and slowly approaching Flush Factory throughout this ending of the season, which obviously leads into Season 7. So let's jump into Season 7. Chapter 1 Season 7 of Fortnite was upon us, releasing the first ever winter-themed season inside of Fortnite. In this season, we saw the introduction of brand new mechanics from Planes, the X-Force Stormwings, Fortnite Creative, and Zip Lines, which was super awesome. POI-wise, the major 3 POIs we got added into this update was obviously the snow biome in the bottom corner of the map on the left side, but we got the introduction of Polar Peak, the AIM Frosty Flights, and also the Happy Hamlet POI. There were some smaller minor map changes, but not worth covering here. There were any noticeable ones. We also got a giant concrete slab known as the block added in later on in that week, which was introduced over at Risky Reels. The block replaced Risky Reels, allowing Fortnite creative players to create islands for the block, which was introduced on the top right of the Fortnite map where Risky used to be. We also saw the introduction of the Infinity Blade as the ice began to melt over at Polar Peak, which introduced the Infinity Blade, which was the first mythical weapon in Fortnite that wasn't a collab item, because obviously the first mythical weapon was technically Thanos' gauntlet. So yeah, kind of cool. But that was that. And then eventually the next update released, which was version 7.1, which introduced the 14 Days of Fortnite event. This event itself introduced a variety of different map changes, from the entire map being covered in snow, as well as the introduction of the Der Burger truck and the pizza truck slowly starting to build its restaurants over at Retail Row. We also saw several Christmas decorations popping up all over the map, and the introduction of presents, the boombox, and the suppressed sniper throughout the 14 Days of Fortnite event. They were all introduced. And then moving on to the next update, version 7.2 introduced the scope revolver and gliders into Fortnite for the first ever time, and the sneaky snowman. Map change wise, we also got the introduction of the Ice King slowly beginning to float above the Polar Peak POI, and some really cool stuff happening inside of Fortnite. We also got the introduction of Softies for the first time, which was the ice cream shop over at Paradise Palms, and Fortnite decided to add in the actual event for the Ice King, the Polar Peak event, or the Ice Storm event. This event really wasn't that mega because we already saw the map covered in snow on Christmas Day, and all this event did was simply cover the map in snow. I believe the original idea for Season 7 was to use the Infinity Blade as the event, but sadly, because they vaulted it, they changed the event, and that was only because of competitive players complaining about the Infinity Blade, which changed the entire of Season 7 and really made the Fortnite storyline a little bit messy. I don't think that was Fortnite's original intention for Season 7, but sadly, that's just the way this season went during this event. And then moving on to our next update, this was the introduction of version 7.3. Boomboxes didn't last long, they were removed in this update straight away, and bottle rockets were introduced for the first time, which were kind of cool to celebrate the Chinese New Year as well. Map change wise, we saw Wailing Woods slowly start to become more brown, the grass actually started to dry up, and even fire particles started rising from Wailing Woods. It was like a mini event hinting to what's going to happen next. And also we saw Tilted Towers reconstructed building, the News HQ, actually fall to an earthquake, which was kind of cool. Other than that, that was the end of this season, leading into Season 8. Fortnite Season 8 had gone live on February 28th, 2019. This was version 8.0, and it introduced pirate cannons in the first release of the season. They were the only new item really added in until Buried Treasure was also added in a week later, where you could actually mine up treasure for the first time in Fortnite. POI wise, we got a few map changes. We saw the block move, that moved over to the left side where Motel used to be, and we actually saw the whole right of the map replaced, which was the whole of Weeping Woods, introducing the volcano and even Sunny Steps on that side over there. Lazy Lagoon was also added to replace Lazy Links. This was the pirate area in the center, and they were really the major map changes. The following update, version 8.1, introduced the Ballers into Fortnite, which was one of the most unique vehicles I've ever seen in a video game. So yeah, congrats Fortnite, that was a really awesome one, probably the best addition. And also the Flintlock was added in a week later. Map change wise was where we started to see the Stone People storyline, the Stone Man and Woman slowly start to walk. This was a really cool storyline, and it did develop throughout the season, but this is all I'm going to cover on it in this video, just because it was only a minor map change throughout this season. The next update was version 8.2, and this introduced the poison dart trap, which could be deployed like a normal trap, which would fire darts that are poisonous towards you. It would also introduce the banana, the coconut, and the pepper in this update. And later on in the update, we saw the introduction of the boom bow, the first ever bow we got added into Fortnite, an explosive bow, and it was amazing. And map change wise, the biggest map change in this update was Tilted Towers actually finishing its construction of the No Sweat Insurance building. Version 8.3 was live, introducing reboot vans for the first time and the reboot cards to allow players to reboot their teammates, which was a major game mechanic. Also, it introduced small diggers around the map, which began to dig up small dig sites all over the place around Season 8, but unfortunately they didn't find anything until the version 8.40, where we actually saw the introduction of a brand new POI in the center, the Loot Lake Vault. This also added in the infantry rifle, the epic and legendary variant, and the Loot Lake Vault did slowly start to actually act a little bit strange, and we saw the introduction of ruins. Now, ruins lasted all the way until version 8.5, which actually introduced the Endgame LTM, which was the second collaboration with Marvel for the Endgame film. This introduced a variety of different mythics, from Captain America's shield, Hawkeye's bow, Iron Man's repulsors, the Stormbreaker, and several items for Thanos and his team. They were all introduced in the Endgame LTM, which lasted for about 2 weeks or so while the film was premiering in the cinema, which was huge stuff for collaborations as well. Much bigger than the previous collaboration they did with Thanos. Even though I did prefer the previous one, this one was awesome because you had to collect the Infinity Stones. It was a really cool collab. And while this was taking place, obviously the runes were still acting around, doing different stuff around the map, eventually heading to the location of the center of Loot Lake, getting ready for the next season. But before that did happen, we did see the introduction of the Shadow Bomb, and then finally we saw the live event for Season 8, where the volcano itself erupted during the unvaulting event. The unvaulting event allowed us to unvault any weapon of our choice, where we chose the drum gun as a community to unvault, and during this event, obviously, the volcano erupted and destroyed several POIs from Tilted, Retail, and even hit Polar Pete, which later in Season 9 would reveal the eye of the monster for the event during Season 9, which we'll get to. We're going to go on to Season 9 right now. Fortnite Season 9 was released on May the 9th, 2019, introducing the combat shotgun as their brand new weapon. I haven't really been covering battle passes too much because I've kind of kept away from cosmetics, but here's a little preview of the battle pass for this season. It was Neo themed because we got the introduction of 2 brand new Neo or Mega POIs. This was Neo Tilted and Mega Marl. In this update, we also saw the introduction of a change over at the volcano, introducing Pressure Plant, which would then be later used to construct the Mecha Team Leader. And then 1 week after Season 9 had gone live, we saw the introduction of the Tactical AR with the John Wick LTM, which was super cool. For those that were fans of John Wick, you could buy John Wick as a skin in game, and you could also visit the hotel in Neo Tilted, which would allow for no shooting or building inside of this hotel, which was a really cool addition to this season. Definitely one of the more notable memories that I personally had. Moving on to version 19.10, this introduced loot drones, which were hovering around the map, as well as the Burst SMG, 2 brand new weapons and items added into this update. Other than that, there weren't too many map changes, but the ice did slowly start to melt over at Polar Pete and was revealing strange sound and noises which were being heard just from outside of the ice. Eventually, the ice did slowly start to reveal the eye of the Polar Pete monster, and it wasn't until version 9.2 where we actually saw the rock cracked open and the Polar Pete monster escape. Sadly, there was no gameplay of this, but that's what basically happened because you could see footprints left on the ground. The Storm Flip and Proximity Grenade Launcher were also introduced in version 9.2, which were 2 brand new items which a lot of people did enjoy. There was also a minor collaboration over at Mega Mall, which introduced the Stranger Things portals as well as the Scoops Ahoy shop, which is a little hint towards the Stranger Things season, which released during the time of Fortnite Season 9 Chapter 1. Eventually, we head over to version 9.3, where the Chug Splash was introduced and the epic and legendary variant of the Revolver were also introduced in this update. And continuing on, the Drum Shotgun was also added in version 9.3, and even the Airstrike. There was a lot of stuff in here because the 14 days of summer was taking place during this period, which added a bunch of different summer decorations around the map, and also saw the Polar Pete monster slowly appearing in the water. If you guys remember, you could see the Polar Pete castle in the water every now and then in the distance, which was a really cool addition in this update. And then finally, heading to version 9.40, we saw the introduction of the constructed robot, the Mecha Team Leader, over at Pressure Plant. This was really crucial because this was going to be used for the up and coming event, which did then take place a few days later, where we saw the live event, the Devourer versus the Mecha Team Leader in the final showdown event, which was crazy, which eventually We know what happened. Unfortunately, the monster did take an L in this battle, which revealed the 0 point, which was then exposed. So, kind of strange, but the 0 point was then exposed for a little bit of time, and no one really knew what it was. Everyone was like, whoa, what is this? And slowly, as time went on, the 0 point did slowly start to change different colors and start to expand. While this was all taking place in version 9.40, we saw the introduction of the epic and legendary tactical shotgun, as well as the Storm Scout rifle, and a few birthday presents around the map to celebrate Fortnite's birthday, where you could actually throw them down, similar to the Christmas presents, and open them up to get free rewards. And then, eventually, we head into Season X, the final season of Chapter 1. Just before we move on to Season X, I don't want to forget Fort Bites. Who remembers collecting all them, constantly getting eliminated every time you'd land in to collect them, or just missing out on one? Yeah, 4 bites are a little bit of a nightmare, but that was probably the biggest memory I had from Season 9, just because it was crazy. Fortnite Season X was released on the 1st of August 2019, introducing the Brute as a brand new vehicle. One vehicle that was loved by many, but also disliked by so many as well. Personally, I was a big fan of it. But we also got a lot of other additions as well in this season. A lot of stuff got vaulted straight off the bat, but we did see the new introduction of the automatic sniper a week after the season launch, which was quite neat. Wasn't that powerful, but it was quite unique to have. Also, Tilted Town was added in within the first week of the season as well, which brought in a Wild West themed area where you couldn't build inside of. 1 week later, version 10.10 does release, and inside of here we see Retail Row map changes. Retail Row returns for where Mega Mall was and actually brings back the cube monsters from the Fortnite Merge event in Season 6. Towards the end of the week of version 10.1, we did see the soccer stadium, the football stadium outside of Tilted Towers, actually have a rift beacon be placed at, and unfortunately this went wrong and exploded and just left a massive crater in the ground. Then moving on to 10.2, this actually introduced the Pandora POI just outside of Paradise Palms, which is a collaboration with Borderlands 3, which was quite neat overall. A really nice little collab which appeared out of nowhere. Also, Fatal Fields had a rift beacon inside of it, which ended up turning into the Cube floating island, which started floating around Season X as well from Season 6 as well. So the Cube did make a return inside of here. And we also got the introduction of the Shield Bubble on August the 27th, which was also the release date of version 10.2, which was kind of cool, a really nice item which we'd never seen before. And then moving on to the end of that week, we did get the introduction of the Zapper Trap, and the Suppress Scar was also introduced at this period as well. 2 new items. The Zapper Trap was brand new, which a lot of people did enjoy. Then moving on to 10.30, 10.3, we did see the introduction of Moisty Palms, which replaced Pandora after the collaboration had ended, which was over by Paradise Palms, where that used to be located. And also the Prison POI returned while this was inside of here. And while this was all taking place, we also saw the introduction of Greasy Grove have a little new change. However, it was a Taco POI, which introduced the taco event in that location, which a lot of people did like over at Greasy, which was kind of cool. Little rift beacon there taking place. And Tilted Town did see its change towards the end of this week, leading up to the end, which actually brought in Gotham City, where Tilted Town was located, and brought in 2 new items, the Explosive Batarang Mythic, and even the Batman Grapple Gun, which is also a mythic item. So 2 brand new mythics did make an appearance. And then finally, towards the very end of the season, on the final update before the event, 10.40, we saw the introduction of all the tapes around the map, which were little rumors kind of and hints towards what could happen during the event, which the visitors left around the map. And the final map change which was introduced was the introduction of Starry Suburbs, and the legendary tactical submachine gun appeared at Starry Suburbs, which was just north of Pleasant Park, a POI which had been there in the past and been ruined since the start of Fortnite in just complete wreckage, but it did get repaired for a few days until the end event did take place. And then finally the end event took place, and as we all know, this was the end of Chapter 1, leading to the Black Hole event, where Fortnite was down for about 3 days or so, waiting for the service to reboot for Chapter 2. Again, an amazing event, one that so many people did love, and it was the end of such an OG era, which only OGs will remember. Let me know in the comments if you played during Chapter 1. Anyway, let's move on to Chapter 2.